Number 10. Man-Bat. Despite once being a villain in addition to a man who is primarily known for his scientific pursuits and brilliance, Man-Bat during his time with the Justice League Dark Branch actually got some exposure to magic and was able to open up his sensitivity to it. At one point he shows that he has learned enough to do what even other more experienced magic users struggled to do: free the new Dr. Fate, Khalid Nazur, grandnephew of Kent Nelson, from a vase that the current Dr. Fate, Naboo, had trapped him in while possessing the body of his great Uncle Nelson. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please go check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Who knows, maybe one day you'll see me over there for a video. Number 9. Tracy 13. Tracy 13 formerly went by the alias of Girl 13 in the New Earth continuity. She's the only daughter of professional skeptic of mysticism Dr. Terrence 13 and his wife, sorceress Mei Huai Lan 13. Tracy uses a unique brand of magic known as urban magic, which allows her to tap into the knowledge, energy, and spirit of cities, fueling her own power with it. She gets much of her knowledge and talent in magic from her mother, who died tragically in a magic-related incident, which broke her father's heart. Tracy is also the founder of the Sisterhood of the Sleight of Hand, a group of witches who work to aid mere mortal heroes. Tracy also possesses knowledge of the occult, which comes from likely both her mother and her father, as well as her own pursuits of knowledge. Number 8. Witchfire. Probably one of the most underrated character in terms of just how cool she is Witchfire. Honestly, I gotta do a cosplay of this magical hero at some point. Many people don't even seem to know about her, at least not my near and dear friends who read comics, which makes sense considering that she only has had a small amount of appearances in comparison to other mystics like John Constantine and Zatanna. Rebecca Carstairs appeared back in the days of the New Earth continuity, and while known for her skills as a witch, she was established as a famous singer, actress, and fashion model as well. As her name implies, she is a witch, so she has magical abilities, but is also well versed in pyrokinesis in addition. When she appeared in the Prime Earth continuity in 2018's Justice League Dark, she was actually sporting a pretty fitting outfit to match her fire skills, with shoulder pads that were made of literal fire, which traditionally tends to be her look. Sadly, her appearance there also resulted in her death, but she was up against some pretty powerful beings at that time, namely the Queen Mother of Witches, Hecate, or Hecate, or Hecate, depending on how you like to say that. Number 7. Detective Chimp. While often thought of as a supremely intelligent hero with his abilities more about his brain and skills of deduction, similar in some ways to Bruce Wayne, aka Batman's main skill set, Bobo T. Chimpanzee is actually mystical in nature when it comes to his own origins. He was granted knowledge thanks to the magical place known as the Fountain of Youth. There, he gained the ability to speak to all beings, an enhanced genius-level intellect, and, of course, eternal youth. Bobo at one point also inherited the Sword of Night, gifted to him by Nightmaster, the former protector of the magical fantasy dimension known as Mira. And he has shown ability before to use his intellect to better understand mystical texts than even experienced and prominent magic users like Zatanna. Number 6. Talisman. Elizabeth II Youngman is Talisman, the daughter of another powerful magic user, Shaman. Like her father before her, Liz hails from the Sarsi tribe and would also end up becoming a team member of Alpha Flight, even though she and her father had a strained relationship growing up due to the death of her mother, which she blamed her father for. Eventually, they would make up, and Talisman would even follow in her father's mystical footsteps. Her codename, Talisman, comes from the powerful magic item that she wields, the Talisman or Coronet of Power, which grants Elizabeth her abilities. However, even without it, she is able to manipulate mystical energy, sensing it, redirecting it, and communing with spirits. Number 5. Black Panther. Black Panther also happens to be a mystical superhero, although as a world leader, we usually think of him for his democratic as well as his tactical abilities, and of course his physical prowess as a fighter. His powers are actually steeped in mysticism though. The powers granted to T'Challa by the heart-shaped herb are believed to be somewhat divine, and in addition to those abilities, he was also granted more power from the goddess Bast during his reign as King of the Dead. Through his powers granted to him by Bast, he can connect with all the previous Black Panthers to have come before him, drawing on their wisdom, their knowledge, and their strength. In addition, he was granted power over the dead, becoming a necromancer. Number 4. Black Alice. Black Alice is one that I don't even think we have ever mentioned on this channel. At least, I don't think I've ever mentioned her. As far as my videos are going, I don't think I've ever brought her up. She is one of the members of the Sisterhood of the Sleight Hand. Her powers are pretty crazy. She is mystical based, and rather than being a straight-edge superhero, she's more of an anti-hero. She has a goth-inspired look, which I am super here for. Her magical abilities allow her to adopt the powers of any magical being for a short time, literally taking their powers, so leaving whoever she is lending from powerless until such a time as she is either done using said powers or time runs out on her own abilities. Black Alice's real name is Lori Zeklin, and she made her first appearance in the New Earth continuity back in Birds of Prey issue number 76 in 2004. Number 3. Manitou Dawn. Manitou Dawn is a character from DC Comics who definitely deserves more love than she gets. She has been associated with the Justice League Elite in the past and is a proud member of the Apache tribe. Her and her husband are both powerful mystics, and at one point Manitou Dawn also garnered attention from Hecate, becoming one of her witch-marked. Manitou Dawn was one of the few people to survive Hecate's attack on the universe. Her magical ability allows her to change size, teleport, manipulate time, telekinesis, and even grants her resurrection powers. While also associated with the Apache tribe, Manitou Dawn is actually from Atlantis, being born there before the famed city sunk into the ocean. She was one of the first members of the Apache tribe, migrating to America eons ago and actually playing a role in its beginnings. At least, in the comics, not necessarily in real life, because she's not a real person, as far as I know. Number 2. Agatha Harkness. Agatha Harkness is one of the most powerful magic users out there, especially when it comes to her knowledge and experience. While posed as a villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where she was revealed to be the main antagonist of the Disney Plus streaming series WandaVision, in the comics, Agatha is much more neutral and has often tried to help protect the world rather than cause harm to it. Sure, she doesn't always make the best call in order to do so, but at least, she's trying to help, not hurt for the most part. Agatha's list of magical powers and abilities is long and includes transmutation, scrying, teleportation, magic negation and reflection, telekinesis, fusion, telepathy, elemental control, and the manipulation of dimensions, among many other abilities. Number 1. Storm. Because Storm is a mutant, many people dismiss her as not being magical in nature, and while her powers are of course mutant in origin, there is actually a lot of mystical heritage, potential, and actual supernatural and spiritual mysticism attached to Aurora Monroe. For one, Storm comes from a long line of powerful magical ancestors, and in fact her striking hair and eye color combination come up frequently in her lineage, also usually coming with magical potential and ability as well. She is related to both the Sorcerer Supreme of the Hyborian Age, Priestess Aisha, and Ashake, who worshipped the mother of Agamotto, Egyptian goddess Maat, sometimes known as Oshtur, and who also once used her magical abilities to help a time-displaced Mirage and magic. Herself, Storm has been both worshipped as and later granted a godhood herself, becoming a goddess whose power is fueled by people's belief in her. And it was also said at one point that she was one of the few with a powerful enough spirit to act as the host or potential host or avatar for the consciousness of eternity. Seriously though, I do not do enough magic-based superhero cosplay. I really need to get on that.
Coming in at number 10, we have Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl. While sharing the same Kryptonian heritage as her more famous cousin Kal-El, for some reason Kara isn't often placed on the same pedestal of awe and power that fans will often place Superman upon. This would be a massive mistake, however, as Supergirl has been shown to be just as strong, fast, and capable as her cousin. And in storylines taking place early in the Man of Steel's career, the more experienced and older Kara has even been said by Batman to be capable of surpassing Superman's strength. While an arm wrestling match these days might end in a draw, it just goes to show that the power of Krypton is still going strong throughout the DC universe. Coming in at number 9, we have Barry Allen, aka The Flash. Barry Allen may be known far and wide for being the fastest man alive, but his mastery of the Speed Force allows him far more interesting and more powerful abilities than merely running really fast. While running near the speed of light, a single punch from the Flash carries the strength of a white dwarf star, and the Flash's body is one of the most durable on a planet filled with metahumans, as he needs that durability to be able to survive the tremendous speeds that he travels at. So much more goes into being the Flash than just blinding speed, a mistake that the Rogues Gallery has made way too many times. Coming in at number 8, we have the Swamp Thing. While at first glance the Swamp Thing may appear to just be an unreasonably strong monster covered in wet moss, in reality Alec Holland is so much more. As an avatar of the green, a primordial force that flows throughout all plant life, Swamp Thing is capable of controlling any form of plant life in the entire universe, whether local to the planet Earth or not. This also includes his own plant matter composed body, which he can alter into any plant he thinks of and can create any form of toxin that he wishes to surprise attack enemies with. Perhaps the most interesting power of the Swamp Thing, however, is his immortality, because as long as there exists some plant life on planet Earth, Alec Holland will have somewhere to house his consciousness and grow into another humanoid Swamp Thing. Coming in at number 7, we have Doctor Strange. Now, obviously Doctor Strange is already known to be pretty powerful. After all, he's Earth's primary defender against mystical threats in the Marvel Universe, and always seems to have some sort of spell to solve whatever problem is currently facing Earth's mightiest heroes. As a master of the mystic arts, Strange has also entirely stopped aging, and is effectively immortal, being unable to die from any medical disease or symptoms of old age. And when Strange recently did die in the Marvel comic called, fittingly enough, The Death of Doctor Strange, he had already concocted a way for a younger version of himself from the timeline to take his place and defend Earth against any extra-dimensional forces that might seek to take advantage of his own death. There's planning ahead, and then there's Dr. Stephen Strange, taking it to a whole nother level. Coming in at number 6, we have Patrick O'Brien, aka Plastic Man. Typically seen as one of the comic relief members of the Justice League, Plastic Man is a hero whose powers just seem wacky on the surface, but when you really think about them, technically make him one of the most powerful members on the Justice League team. Capable of completely manipulating his body down to the molecular level, Plastic Man is essentially indestructible given how flexible he's able to become. Completely impervious to physical damage, Plastic Man has also shown a complete immunity to mind control or telepathic suggestions, as his brain isn't made of enough solid matter for anyone else to control. All of these facts combine to make Plastic Man much more dangerous than a simple joke of a hero. Coming in at number 5, we have Ghost Rider. As a flaming skull-headed hero with demonic superpowers, Ghost Rider is one of the more noteworthy mystical heroes in the Marvel Universe, using Hell's own powers to fight against evil and protect his world from whatever threatens it. But Ghost Rider's most underrated ability might just be his penance stare, which causes whoever it's being used upon to relive all of the pain and trauma they've caused throughout their life and filling them with remorse. Some villains are merely stunned by the penance stare, while some have been so remorseful they've burst into flames, with even the godlike Galactus being halted by the penance stare and forced to experience the trillions of deaths that he'd caused over the years. And if you can stop Galactus, hell, you can pretty much stop anything. Coming in at number 4, we have Bobby Drake, aka Iceman. As one of the earliest members of the X-Men, Bobby has had a lot of time over the years to explore his powers, and contrary to appearances, he can do far more than just convert his body into ice. Classified as an Omega level mutant, the most powerful designation there is, Iceman is capable of not only controlling the temperature of all of his own molecules, but is able to manipulate water molecules entirely as well as part of his own mass. This means the possibilities for Bobby's powers are as intense and malleable as water itself, allowing him to freeze the blood within enemies' veins, travel instantly through a stream of water, or even cause another ice age if Bobby didn't hold back his full strength. Coming in at number 3, we have Mark Spector, aka the infamous Moon Knight. A street-level Marvel hero with powers that go far beyond the usual street, Mark Spector is a vessel for the Egyptian god known as Khonshu. Able to embrace the 4 different aspects of Khonshu as 4 distinct personalities within his head, Moon Knight is strongest under the light of a full moon, giving him physical strength far beyond that of a normal man, and a pain tolerance that is nearly limitless limitless. On top of his supernatural abilities, Mark is also an expert in both weaponry and hand-to-hand combat, combining them with his moon-based powers into a deadly combination that even left him capable of taking on the entire Avengers team. Coming in at number 2, we have Susan Storm, aka the Invisible Woman. On a team with someone made of fire, someone made of rocks, and the smartest man in the universe, you wouldn't immediately think that the Invisible Woman is the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, but looks can certainly be deceiving. Granted, with the power of invisibility and the power to generate invisible force fields following her exposure to cosmic radiation, Sue Storm's force fields are the key to her tremendous strength. Capable of turning others invisible, giving herself support to fly through the air, and capable of blocking even psychic attacks against her or the rest of the team, the Invisible Woman can manipulate her force fields into any shape that's needed, including being capable of creating expanding fields inside of any enemy she chooses. Let's just hope that that usage of her ability stays just with her villainous alter ego, shall we? And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the one and only Spectacular Spider-Man. Spider-Man would never be called a weakling by anyone, except maybe some supervillains, but his actual physical strength is actually far beyond what anyone in even the Marvel universe would expect. Under situations of intense stress, Peter Parker has been shown as capable of lifting literal tons, far beyond the usual strength he generally seems to show. And when Peter Parker's body was briefly taken over by Otto Octavius's brain, the villain was stunned to discover that Spider-Man had been holding back every punch he'd ever thrown, after accidentally knocking the Scorpion's jaw clean off. Definitely a messy situation, and definitely goes to show that fighting Spider-Man, it's not the brightest idea.
Number 10. Being a non-human cube? Christopher Hargreaves is quickly becoming one of my favorite characters in Season 3 of the Umbrella Academy streaming series on Netflix. Like most of the rest of the characters and plot in this series, Christopher is a character inspired by their own comic book counterpart. In the comics, Christopher is still a non-human cube who is part of the Sparrows team. In the comics, they are a secret team that exists at the same time as the Umbrella Academy, working in secret to save the world, being brought together by Reginald Hargreaves, but managed by Grace, who the Umbrella Academy, even in Season 3 of the show, still refer to as Mom. Christopher in the show appears to have fear-inducing powers and can also affect the temperature of the air around him, dropping it down to freezing. You wouldn't think a floating cube would be powerful, but of course, Umbrella Academy makes this amazing weirdness possible. Number 9. Seeing really well. When it comes to Eye-Boy, many of his powers are tied to him having multiple eyes. I believe in total he has 57 eyes that cover his body. A lot of people relegate Eye-Boy to not being that powerful because, well, his mutation seems pretty ridiculous. But in reality, having multiple eyes is extremely powerful and actually has tons of benefits. Kind of like how Cypher was initially thought to have a pretty useless power set with his ability to communicate and understand all languages, until we learned just how universally that actually could apply. The same could be said for Eye-Boy. Trevor not only has multiple eyes, but can use them to perceive things others can't. He has microscopic, night, infrared, telescopic, thermal, and even chemical vision. He can also read body language immensely well, allowing him to see into people's true feelings, emotions, and psychology. And aside from that, he can even see through falsehoods and illusions, and see potential weaknesses in his opponents. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists in the series, you know what to do. Hey, make sure you comment down below to let us know and click that like button. It really does let us know that you want more content like this. Number 8. Street existence? I don't even know what to call this power set. Really, it kinda just has to do with what Danny is. Their unique, I guess, physiology. Danny is a street, often known as Danny the Street, and sometimes when Danny has been hurt, Danny the Brick. Danny is a street that appears to those who most need a refuge in the world, the outcasts of society, if you will. Danny provides a safe haven for these people so that they can truly be themselves, living without prejudice or judgment. Being a street is weirdly powerful, and Danny can actually control what is on the street and its decor. Danny can also teleport to anywhere around the world to protect their citizens, which is also kinda weirdly OP for those who both live on the street and of course for Danny themselves. Number 7. Light transmutation. Dazzler to me is such an underrated hero. Her powers allow her to transmute sound into light, which on paper sounds pretty lame until you realize just all the things she can actually use light to do, like make light lasers, just super cool. Although Dazzler, aka Allison Blair, prefers to use her powers to jazz up her concerts and musical performances with stunning light shows, although it's never really been explained if the sound is then muted thanks to her doing this or not. I'm assuming not, because people still seem to be able to hear her sing and her band play music. Dazzler also has been called on every now and then to play the role of hero. Daz proved herself to be so powerful throughout her own series, accomplishing things like facing the Hulk and not only surviving, but kinda beating him, and even being considered powerful enough to become a temporary Herald of Galactus. Number 6. Polka Dot Suit. You wouldn't think a polka dot suit would be so powerful, and yet, whether we are talking Polka Dot Man's suit in the comics or in the DCEU film James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, either way, he's pretty OP. In the comics, Polka Dot Man's suit is tech, where he can basically use the polka dots on his suit to turn them into any kind of weapon that he wants or a getaway device. All the dots kind of do different things. Pretty wild, but also pretty weird. The major flaw being that of course the suit can break down. While in the comics, Polka Dot Man is a villain, in the DCEU he's more an anti-hero, a forcibly reformed criminal who joins the Suicide Squad and ends up saving the world from Starro the Conqueror. Here, Polka Dot Man's polka dots are actually more intrinsic to him, kind of like really his own power, and they appear on his skin. When he purges them, they can be used as weapons to take down enemies, acting like destructive projectiles. But also, he does kinda need to purge them, so there is that. Here, his polka dot generation is explained as being the result of an interdimensional virus that basically Abner received after his awful mother experimented on him and his siblings. Also, I hope there's more Suicide Squad movies, and I hope we get to see more of his siblings and they're all like just the same actor but like different people that have weird powers. That'd be awesome. Number 5. Power of music. Going back to Dazzler, another power that seems to get overlooked with her and a few other folks is her singing ability. Although it's not specifically a superpower, there have been multiple times it's been kinda used as such. At one point, Dazzler participates in a singing competition with Enchantress, attempting to win Odin's favor. Although Enchantress is considered to be more beautiful than Dazzler, Allison still manages to beat her because she's just that good of a singer, and that's pretty impressive considering that Odin is the judge of this singing contest, so gotta impress Odin. And this is a competition where she's basically fighting for her life through song. There have been other such occasions in the comics where people have had to use the power of music to get themselves out of tough spots or to win favor. Music both in and outside of the comics is just a powerful thing. In the real world, even plants can be swayed by its influence and its power. The power of song. Number 4. Battle Precognition. Midnighter is another superhero who has unique powers that many simply don't really seem to think of, but when you do, you realize just how powerful he is. Midnighter basically has a chip in his head that allows him to parse out all the possible outcomes when in the midst of a fight. He can basically run through hundreds of possibilities when it comes to his opponent's next move in a matter of seconds, meaning that he almost always knows which move to make himself to best counter whomever he's fighting. In essence, he has precognitive programming, which allows him to see into the future and kind of better plan what moves to make in the moment in order to win against, well, almost any opponent, really. Number 3. Elemental Control. Elemental Control is a power that on paper sounds great, but what if you just have one element that you control? A lot of people feel like, well, then it's not that great. There are a few different points here I'd like to make though on powers in regards to elements. There are those who people think are simply not as strong due to them being tied to, one specific element. And then there are those who are simply underestimated due to the fact that people think they can only control one element or one aspect of the elements, when in fact they can actually control many of those things. Namely, here we are talking about Iceman and Storm. Iceman might not sound so powerful. I mean, back in the day he was kind of more of a snowman even than an Iceman, who mainly used his powers to create ice walls and ice slides, but Bobby has proven over the years as he's honed his powers that manipulation of water in any form is really powerful. He can not only manipulate ice but also water at this point, and is almost immortal, as even when he's destroyed he can basically seemingly regenerate from just a single drop of water or like a piece of ice. He can also create ice golems, which may be sentient even. When it comes to Storm, you might just think of her as an elemental who can control, well, storms, but she can actually do much more than that. We've also seen her control temperatures, heating things up and cooling them off. In fact, Storm is really a master of all elements, so don't let her mutant name fool you. Storm is like an all-around powerful elemental, and not someone you want to mess with. And she's a great fighter, so Storm is really, just don't mess with Storm. Don't make Storm mad, it wouldn't be good. Number 2, Super Speed. Super Speed is one of my favorite all-time superpowers around. I think it is super powerful, crazy powerful really. And honestly, although I know we have famous heroes like the Flash running around, I don't think Super Speed gets enough hype or love or appreciation, which is why I wanted to put it on this list. I mean, the Flash has managed to save and endanger the world using his Speed Force powers on more than one occasion, showing you just how epic these abilities can be when/if you get creative enough. Well, I guess if the writers and artists are creative enough, rather. I guess I should say, since they're the ones telling us the stories. Super speed is a power that has been used to do a multitude of things, including speed learning and speed reading, which is probably one of my favorite uses for this ability. That and the ability to phase for people that can move that fast. That and time travel, which is another thing people can do with it. You can see Superman use his super speed to do some super fast reading, and you can even see in Marvel the mutant hero Tempo use her ability to manipulate time to speedily run an algorithm created by Forge thousands of times in a few short minutes in order to help her fellow secret X-Men find Deathbird's ship. Now that is more time manipulation, but still, what I'm saying is the faster you can operate something or read, the more you can get done and the more knowledge you're able to have. I mean, Superman, Flash, they could basically both be super geniuses if they just used their power in this way. In theory. Although some people might say that they are super geniuses. I don't typically consider Superman to be a super genius, but he could be one. Man can read like probably all the books in the world in like, I don't know, probably a day or something crazy. He's really fast. Number 1, Oniromancy. While many might not think about how powerful this can be and might be quick to write dream powers off as, dreams aren't real, they're actually super powerful. We can look at a few different characters when it comes to dream manipulation. One of the newer additions to Marvel Comics in the world of mutants is Somnus, who was retconned to be a past lover of Akahiro's, aka Dawkins. Somnus's power allows him to put people to sleep and from there basically control their dreams. Therefore, although he and Akahiro only had a one-night stand, in their dreams they actually lived a whole life together. So that one night to them both was basically a lifetime. Similarly, we can look to DC, where we have the Lord of Dreams, now Daniel but formerly Morpheus. Although the Dream Lord of the Endless technically doesn't have a formal name and exists as long as there are dreams to be had. These two versions of the characters though are made to be distinct through the Sandman narrative, so that's why I refer to them as being different people with names, because that's how they're referred to in the comics. Dream has shown us over the years just how powerful manipulating one's dreams and nightmares can be. The answer is it can be like crazy powerful. People are always like, what are you gonna do, mess with my dreams? And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna like trap you in a nightmare for your whole life and then you'll die. How does that sound? Doesn't sound very good, does it? Number 10, Catman. Catman is a hero who does not get enough love. He was originally a villain until Gail Simone flipped the script with his character, redeeming him by having him join the Secret Six. He'd later go on to become their leader. Catman was once the enemy of Batman. His power set currently is also connected to his kinda cat-like mantle, with him being believed to have 9 lives and enhanced sense of smell, at least in the Prime Earth continuity. Traditionally, some of his powers in the New Earth continuity were connected to his suit, but regardless, he has always been a gifted hunter, fighter, acrobat, and in that previous continuity was also considered a genius, which so many people in the DC universe are. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please go check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 9, Ricochet. Ricochet is a really interesting hero. He's actually a mutant, but has also been spotted as a one-time member at the Avengers Academy. He also is a former member of the Slingers, which was where he was first introduced in their eponymous series in the 1990s. While the Slingers would later disband, they have since returned in the comics, with Ricochet being reunited with his former partner Dusk, who believed he was being held against his will when he simply had taken up a job with Beyond and was participating in experiments involving interdimensional tech. Ricochet's mutant power grants him enhanced agility and dexterity, which also lends to him having a power similar to Spider Sense, where he can basically feel when he's in danger, and also makes him a skilled marksman as well. Number 8, Wildcat. You know Black Canary? You know Catwoman? You know Batman? You know Superman? Well then in a way, you know Wildcat. Ted Grant is Wildcat and he has trained all of those superheroes. If you've seen them go to blows with the villain, there's likely that you're seeing some of his skills on display there as a teacher and a boxer. Ted Grant was framed for the death of one of his opponents as a boxer years ago, and that's what has inspired him to become a fighter for justice, becoming a hero in his own right who served on the Justice Society of America. Number 7. Hornet. Hobie Brown is a hero who does not get enough love, not by a long shot. He recently appeared alongside the Slingers in the Amazing Spider-Man series during the Beyond event. He appeared in a side story that was featured in one of the Point Bays, or perhaps I should say the Point Bs, since that's short for Beyond. I still like saying Point Bay though. Hobie is known for his genius intellect, although he initially thought a life of crime was the right way to go with that, adopting the identity of the Prowler on Earth 616, but Spider-Man was quick to encourage his reform, even giving him work impersonating Spider-Man to protect Peter Parker's secret identity. He initially used his genius to build his first suit, which was where he basically got his powers from, possessing, no superpowers himself. He has since also built his newest suit for his heroic mantle of Hornet, and honestly, I'm really hoping we get to see more of him and the Slingers in the comics soon. The Slingers are so cool. Number 6. Huntress. For this version of Huntress, we are focusing on Helena Bertinelli, who unbeknownst to her had grown up in a mafia household. When a hit was put on her family, she was one of the only people that survived, and really only survived by accident. She trained in the old country of Sicily, being taken in by her father and uncle, but eventually learned the truth of her own family's involvement with the mafia, and learned that the mafia was not really good but a source of corruption and evil. When she returned to Gotham to visit a family as a teenager over the holidays, she witnessed Batman attack her family, and rightfully so, she thought. She didn't really like her family. Inspired by him and the fear that he created, she decided to follow in his footsteps and become a vigilante with her life devoted to wiping out the mafia in order to get her revenge. Number 5. Elektra. Elektra is often thought of as more of a villain in the comics, and more of a dead villain really, since well, she's mostly famous for kinda dying and thereby breaking Daredevil's heart, as she was his lover, his former lover. In fact, she was the first love that Daredevil ever really lost, which has kinda become his thing, although even before she died she was kinda lost to Matt Murdock in terms of their love story anyways. Elektra was pulled to the side of darkness but would later return in the comics and has since turned to the side of good, even walking in Matt's footsteps and donning his cowl, becoming herself a version of Daredevil. Number 4. The Question. The Question has been asked by a few different people over the years, and honestly the Question is a character that probably doesn't get enough love on this channel. Whether we're talking about Vic Sage, who randomly lives again despite having previously died from cancer, or Renee Montoya, his GCPD detective who was his former love interest, who was later revealed to be gay and then later followed in her mentor Sage's footsteps, or the other one, the nameless one, who was kind of less cool than either of the other iterations in my opinion. The Question is an interesting character. While things got a little too magical with the newest version of the character, I've always loved that the original Question was both a master detective but also somewhat mystical as well, having much knowledge of things both spiritual and supernatural gathered through his travels. While not particularly well known for his fighting style, Vic did train Renee Montoya, who was already a pretty good fighter, being a trained boxer and police officer who also became a skilled martial artist, and even at one point managed to hold her own for a period of time in a fight against Lady Shiva, with Shiva even remarking on how the fight was more interesting than she initially expected. Which from Lady Shiva, hey, that's a compliment. Number 3. Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a hero who many people now have more respect for thanks to his appearance in the MCU in his own series, Moon Knight. Here he is depicted as a man divided who brings all sides of himself together to take on god-level threats. If that isn't strong, I do not know what is. But even in the comics, Moon Knight has always had this potential really. While street level in terms of the types of fights that he generally picks across personas, he also has an origin and background steeped in the supernatural and in mysticism. A lot of people think of Moon Knight as kind of just like a crazy guy who's really good at beating people up, but in reality he potentially gains power from the moon due to his connection to the, as of now, confirmed to be real god known as Khonshu. Aside from that, Moon Knight has also literally had to fight gods, even having to fight against his own god during Age of Khonshu. This likely has dampened his power source somewhat, as Khonshu is currently locked away, but Moon Knight still remains a powerful hero regardless. Number 2. Batwoman. Batwoman doesn't get hyped a lot on our channel unless we're talking about the Bat family or queer representation in comics, I feel. At least speaking for my own list and when I find I tend to talk about Batwoman, but she deserves to be hyped just for being a powerful hero in her own right. Kate Kane is the cousin of Bruce Wayne, and I just realized that their names rhyme. Kate Kane, Bruce Wayne. What the heck? She was kicked out of the military for being gay and ended up deciding to put her skills and abilities to good use as a vigilante instead. What's even more impressive is that although Kate only ever wanted to serve after losing her mom and her sister, she actually admits to being gay as opposed to hiding it, which is what causes her to have to leave the military. She couldn't bring herself to lie about it, and honestly, this shows one of Kate's greatest strengths and most prominent traits: honor. Kate Kane is a hero even skilled fighters like Cassandra Cain look up to, and she's proven to be skilled enough to take out an unsuspecting Batgirl, aka Barbara Gordon, which is no easy feat. Barbara Gordon is a pretty impressive fighter. Number 1. Danny Rand. Or Daniel Rand if we're being formal. While I do sometimes like to poke fun at Danny Rand, the fact remains that he is insanely OP, especially for being a street level superhero. While no longer the Iron Fist currently in the comics, Danny Rand for a long time was the guy you thought of when you thought the words Iron Fist. He's defeated dragons! Even without the Iron Fist power though, he is still a master martial artist who could probably only be rivaled in terms of his skill by the likes of someone else just as gifted, someone like another deadly martial artist superhero like Shang-Chi. Rand has complete control of his nervous system and can also withstand pain and achieve a sense of control over his body using meditation techniques. His senses are so great and attuned that he doesn't even need to be able to see his opponent to fight them, and he has been said to be a master of chi.
And we'll move on to number 10, which is Firestorm. Ronnie Raymond was a jock of a high school student who was also, funnily enough, an environmentalist. When Ronnie showed up to protest the opening of a new nuclear plant, he met Dr. Martin Stein, a Nobel Prize winning physicist who worked there. When the Firestorm Matrix reactor malfunctioned thanks to one of Ronnie's compadres, Stein and Raymond were both caught in the radioactive aftermath and somehow found themselves fused together into Firestorm, the Nuclear Man. Now, they are a being with two minds sharing the same body, usually with Raymond taking the lead. Alongside the rather unique one man with two minds thing, Firestorm also gained the ability to transmute any non-organic matter, having complete control over molecules. With this ability, he can do many things. Flight, phasing, regeneration, self-sustenance, strength, durability, shapeshifting, energy projection, and absorption and density manipulation. All of which, as you know, make for an incredibly powerful individual. Number 9. Vixen. Mary McCabe, who is the superhero known as Vixen, is also a successful fashion icon, talk show host, and animal activist, who is able to channel the powers of any animal that has walked or evolved on Earth through the mystical object given to her ancestor by the god Anansi called the Tantu Totem. Originally, it was the Tantu Totem that gave her her abilities, but over time it has been changed. The totem actually just helps hone said abilities. Basically, Vixen has a strong connection to the Red, which is a magical thingy that connects all animal life in DC Comics. A few other characters also share a connection to the Red, but I think Vixen is definitely one of the coolest. Normally, she uses this power for flight and to enhance her speed, strength, senses, and healing abilities. But she has also sometimes used the poisonous abilities of certain animals and has even been seen to fully transform into animals. Vixen's ability is so wide that she can use the light of an anglerfish to create powerful lasers, use the armor of armored beetles to withstand a punch from Superman, and she can even create a force field using just the energy from the Red itself. Number 8. Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle Scarab is what gives this hero their powers. I say there because the Blue Beetle has been multiple people over the years. Dan Garrett and Ted Kord were the first, with the most recent Blue Beetle being Jamie Reyes, and he will also be the one featured in the DCEU, so I'm gonna mainly focus on him, sorry. Once the Scarab latches onto Reyes' spine, it can manifest various powers. When he's in danger, the Scarab automatically activates and encompasses him in a high-tech suit of blue, beetle-like armor. This suit provides Reyes with superhuman durability and strength, flight with wings that spread out of the back, and speed with rocket boosters. It can also translate both human and alien languages for Reyes. The suit's durability is so high that it is bulletproof and allows Reyes to survive the heat of a rocket launch, re-entering Earth's orbit, and even explosions. The suit can also produce energy blasts from its hands that are powerful enough to discharge Kryptonian radiation and neutralize magic, which, if you don't know, both of those things are quite the feat. The suit can also construct objects out of nanotechnology as well as transform itself into nearly anything. The suit has transformed itself into anything from swords and cannons to a staple gun, which could probably be pretty useful, I think. It can manipulate alien technology and apparently has access to WMDs that are apparently capable of taking out the Spectre, so yeah, don't sleep on Blue Beetle. Number 7. Red Tornado. Originally, Red Tornado was an android created by the supervillain T.O. Morrow, whose name I absolutely hate. But he was made to infiltrate the Justice Society of America. But since then, the android he's become more than an android, but he's also become a noble superhero and a pretty gosh darn powerful member of the Justice League. Red Tornado basically is an air elemental housed in an android shell. He can create powerful air currents powerful enough to level skyscrapers in seconds. He channels air and wind forces through his arms and legs to produce bursts of cyclone strength winds and high speed forward velocity flight. He can also absorb air, which, I mean, we all absorb air when we breathe, so it's kind of weird. But Red Tornado is also super strong and very durable, enough so that he, or it, can take a missile straight on and come out completely unharmed. A few times, Red Tornado actually managed to become invisible to the human eye due to his high velocity movement, and surprisingly not because he's an elemental. His android form also gives him resistance to various mental powers. He's very cool, but unfortunately not as popular as he should be. Number 6. The Ray. Raymond Terrell was apparently born with a condition that didn't allow him any exposure to sunlight. Or at least, that's what he had been told. It turns out Ray had been lied to. In reality, Ray's real father was Happy Terrell, a World War II hero known as the Ray. So it turns out Raymond was born with tremendous superpowers that only awaken with light exposure. Upon discovering his new powers, he actually went invisible for about 4 years, before saving a friend, turning the assailant invisible and then restoring them to scare the bejesus out of them. Ray is a being of light and has many abilities as a result. Once his body absorbs natural light, like sunlight or artificial light, he can direct the energy to rearrange molecules into any form, matter, or energy. With the projected energy, he can fly, project rays, beams, and bolts of destructive light, and create constructs out of pure light similar to how a Green Lantern can do it. Obviously, he can bend light to make himself or others invisible, but he can also do a similar thing in order to create illusions. And after consuming light energy, he can sustain himself off of it, not needing to eat or drink. Number 5. Metamorpho. Rex Mason was a globe-trotting adventurer and archaeologist who encountered the Orb of Ra on one of his journeys. This orb mutated him just a little horribly, but alongside the mutations, it also gave him the power to convert his body into any element. If you ask me, it's a pretty fair trade-off. I would take it. Using the power to shapeshift his body into various forms using the elements, he became a hero. Now, Rex can stretch, bounce, elongate, control, and reshape his body as if it were made out of rubber or plastic. He can alter the shapes and consistencies of the elements he becomes and even combine them to form complex compounds. He has biofission, meaning that Rex can split his body into several copies of himself, each with the same powers. And lastly, he has a naturally occurring body armor, but it's a little redundant because, although Metamorpho's powers allow him to fight against evil, they also are a curse, keeping him trapped in a hideous form, unable to even die. He's not hideous, honestly. People are just kind of judgmental. Number 4, Stargirl. Starting off as Star-Spangled Kid of the team Stars and Stripes with her stepdad, Pat Duggan, after joining the JSA, Courtney Whitmore is given the Star Rod when Jack Knight decides to quit being Starman. To continue his legacy, eventually she officially declares herself as Stargirl. Now, as Star-Spangled Kid, Courtney used the Cosmic Converter Belt, which enhances a number of Courtney's abilities such as her agility, durability, speed, stamina, stamina and strength, as well as allowing her to create star blasts from the stored energy of the belt. When she became Stargirl, she still kept this belt, but now she's using the Star Rod, which allows her to fly as well as absorb energy which she can project into various uses, such as blasts and force fields. Also, because the rod is attuned to her, it can receive mental commands from a distance, so she can do multiple different things here. Pretty good. Number 3, Aztec. Okay, since we are talking about a character who has a lot to do with Aztec mythology, I will 110% mess up some pronunciation here, just a forewarning. Uno, the man who would become Aztec, was trained from birth by the mysterious Q Society, which is a secret organization dedicated to providing a champion for Quetzalcoatl. His mission is to prepare for the eventual second coming of the dark god Tezcatlipoca. To help with that, Aztec's power comes from the Mask of Warriors, which has been handed down from warrior to warrior over the generations, with their consciousness becoming one with the mask, meaning Aztec can call upon the experience of his predecessors in any situation, which is incredibly helpful. The helmet bestows its wearer with a variety of abilities other than that though, including enhanced audio and visual systems like X-ray and infrared vision. It protects the wearer, increasing physical strength, and will even transfer full motor control over to the helmet if the wearer becomes unconscious. The armor can camouflage itself, turning it invisible or reducing the wearer's molecular density. The gauntlets contain energy blasters located in the palms, and launchers hidden in the wrists that can shoot wire nets, cables, or mini rockets. Kind of like Iron Man, the armor's chest piece acts as a power battery for the suit, and also allows the venting of highly destructive energy that can destroy a whole city block. The suit also allows him to fly and allows Aztec to travel through space. It also looks super cool. Number 2, Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle was Scott Free, who is the god of escape in the New Gods mythology. So that's already a high level of praise. A Genetian raised on Apocalypse, Scott and Big Barda left for Earth, where he used the skills he learned in escapology, both as a performance artist and in the Justice League of America. So, obviously as a new god he has immortality, super strength, durability, and agility, but the fun part is his escapology. Scott can basically escape from most things, even in his sleep, and no, I'm not joking. He is aware of the unconscious procedures he's mastered and can modify them in their use with other skills to use new knowledge. He's also very proficient when it comes to making traps. It may not seem like an incredibly useful ability, but it is certainly unique and can be used in more instances than you may think, especially when on a team like the Justice League. And in at number 1 is the Phantom Stranger. First appearing in the first issue of his own self-titled comic all the way back in 1952, the Phantom Stranger is an immortal, to the extent of even surviving having his own heart taken out of his body. The Phantom Stranger is a mysterious supernatural guide and specialist in the occult. He can travel across space and time at will, even to magical dimensions, including the realm of the just dead, the antechamber of souls, heaven, hell, apocalypse, and the realm occupied by the quintessence. All of which is something very few Justice League members can actually do. There's a lot that is just kind of not known about this character, which is a purposeful thing, but it's a really annoying thing for making a video on him on YouTube. In the New 52, he is apparently Judas Iscariot, roaming the earth trying to make up for the guilt of betraying Jesus. I don't know where that came from, it just kinda is the way it is. He is one of the most powerful magic users in DC Comics, with his use of magic being almost unmatchable if not taken by surprise. Number 10, Starbrand. Starbrand isn't so much a singular person as it is a power in and of itself. Right now, the current Starbrand in the 616 universe is Brandy Selby, daughter of Suzanne Selby, who became the Starbrand after the one before her, Kevin Connor, passed away. The Avengers stepped in and had to help Suzanne deliver little Brandy, an act that caused Suzanne to pass away and attach the Starbrand to Brandy. Since Brandy's birth, she's used the Starbrand to fly and survive without oxygen and in the vacuum of space, and she can use extremely powerful energy blasts that can take down multiple people at once. But the Starbrand itself is an incredible source of power, proven by other people who have wielded it. The bearer of Earth 723's Starbrand used the power to create music that can influence human behavior to the extent that he has unified the people of his world as a single hive mind. On Earth 541, the Starbrand Bearer has conquered his world and installed himself as the head of a benevolent monarchical dictatorship, but like a good one that actually somehow works despite the lack of freedoms. Number 9. Mantis. Mantis actually got her start in comics when she used her abilities to reform Swordsman or Jacques Duquesne, which actually got her into the Avengers. Mantis's powers and abilities are more than what you may have gathered from her film counterpart. Mantis has complete control over her body, which in turn gives her peak human agility, the ability to accelerate healing through force of will, and an empathic nature enabling her to communicate telepathically with and sense the emotions of others as psychic vibrations. She can also control her heart and respiratory rate and blood flow. Her master of the Kotati priest's martial arts, which focuses on the manipulation of nerve endings and pressure points, has enabled her to knock out beings as powerful as Thor, and her telepathic and empathic abilities are improved upon thanks to her 2 little antennae she has coming out of her head. It doesn't stop there though. Mantis also gained abilities when she merged with the Kotati, such as being able to communicate with both plants and animals and survive in space in a physically solid energy form. She can transfer herself from plant life to plant life across interstellar distances or dimensions, creating a new body from the plant life where she ends up. She can transmit and receive telepathic impressions, she has precognitive powers, and more recently she can fire powerful pyrokinetic energy blasts, form energy shields, communicate directly with cosmic beings such as eternity and death, and completely control her personal energies as well as her physical form. Number 8. Tigra. When Greer Nelson first came on the scene, she was just known as the Cat and was given powers tied to her costume, but that all changed when she became Tigra, mutating into a human-tiger hybrid in a ritual that bound her to the Cat People, which is a very silly name, but was a race of humanoid cats who were created in the Middle Ages. Now before you laugh at her for looking kinda silly, just know that in her tiger form, Tigra is granted some awesome abilities. Her superhuman strength allows her to lift over 10 tons, with her leg muscles allowing her to perform a standing jump of 12 feet. She can run at speeds of around 70 miles per hour, has superhuman durability, agility, reflexes, and stamina, and as we all know, cats have heightened senses and like to knock things off of where you carefully place them. And as far as I know, the former is the same with Tigra, whose senses are about 10 times that of a human. Tigra's eyesight can sense the infrared portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, allowing for night vision. She can more easily detect the movements of an opponent. Her hearing is so strong that she can detect a ball of tissue paper being dropped at a distance of 40 feet, and her sense of smell lets her track people. More than that, she can even detect subtle alterations in the composition of perspiration that reflects mood or emotions and is highly sensitive to pheromones. Her claws and fangs can cut through steel, and like Mantis, she is an empath able to enhance and control emotions to a degree. Number 7. Monica Rambeau. With the title of Captain Marvel, it's easy to not fully understand the powers of Monica Rambeau, but they are different to her other Captain Marvel counterparts, and in my opinion, she is my favorite of the characters to take on the title. After being bombarded with extra-dimensional energy emitted by a stolen device, Monica Rambeau acquired the ability to convert her body mass into and control any form of energy of the electromagnetic spectrum. Those energy forms include visible light, radio waves, electricity, X-rays, microwaves, infrared radiation, ultraviolet radiation, cosmic rays, and gamma radiation. But whenever she comes into contact with new forms of energy, such as neutrinos, Monica can mimic that energy's wavelength as well, given enough time, and she'll be able to actually transform into it. As you can imagine, there is a lot she can do with these various forms of energy. Flight, speed of light travel, intangibility, invisibility, energy blast and absorption, hologram creation and appearance alteration, size alteration, power boosting, and she can even become a kind of hard solid light. Number 6. Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is one of, if not the greatest martial artist on Earth. He was trained from birth to become the ultimate warrior. He can take on multiple opponents at once and can even defeat people much more superhumanly powerful than him. He is particularly skilled in Chinese martial arts, but his skill branches out to many more. In one case, he even worked with Spider-Man to create a new martial art based on Peter's powers. Shang-Chi also is able to manipulate Chi energy, which he can use to enhance his strength and durability, and can even detect others based on their energy, like he did when he detected the psionically masked Jean Grey. But Shang-Chi gets a much more significant power boost when he is using the 10 rings. He can use the rings as projectiles, manipulate their size, and even use them to levitate and fly. The rings grant the martial master superhuman strength, durability, speed, and stamina, and he can even manipulate energies from the rings to do many things, including projecting said energy and creating an energy-based blast. And then just to top it all off, thanks to the other side of his heritage, Shang-Chi inherited his mother's psionic abilities to communicate with his blood relatives, even the deceased ones. Number 5. Moondragon. It may come as a surprise, but Heather Douglas is actually one of the most powerful human-born telepaths in existence. She gained her power after she trained under the Shaolin monks of Titan, thanks to Thanos' father, Mentor, taking her in. Her telepathic abilities rival and surpass even those of powerful mutants like Professor X. With this power, she has been able to mentally enslave an entire planet of beings who were constantly at war with each other, bringing peace to said planet. She has been in a psionic stalemate with the Sorcerer Supreme, and she's even straight up de-lifed a clone of Thanos who, at the time, had even greater mental powers than Professor X. Her powers are so powerful in fact that they can maintain themselves subconsciously, meaning that even if she is unconscious, she will maintain the effects of said powers. A huge part of her character, even the reason for her awesome Moondragon name, comes from the fact that she is, or was, actually under the influence of an extremely powerful entity known as the Dragon of the Moon, who has been manipulating her for a long time, even initially letting Heather believe she had overcome the demon. But thanks to this dragon, she has been able to take on a dragon form where she could move faster than light, survive in space, and was super strong and durable. Number 4. Jack of Hearts. Jonathan Hart is a hero you may not have heard of. Jack Hart was the son of a brilliant scientist, a scientist that created the ridiculously efficient liquid sci-fi fuel called Zero Fluid, that in a tragic comic book backstory was exposed to Jack and gave him his awesome abilities. Due to the cellular mutation that took place after his Zero Fluid exposure, Jonathan Hart is now able to produce pink concussive energy beams and blasts from his hands and body, taking up the incredibly clever name of Jack of Hearts, apparently in honor of his father's love of card games, and not because it's actually his name, basically. His biological structure was reformatted to basically give him the superhuman starter pack abilities, but his strength specifically has been able to lift 25 tons. He has enhanced speed, stamina, healing factor, and durability, able to withstand some pretty heavy hits and survive in the vacuum of space. But in addition, thanks to a symbiote energy sump device, Jack went through another mutation which gave him the ability to think as fast as a computer can, and he can retain and retrieve stored information from the deep recesses of his brain, which is pretty cool. Number 3. Sersi. Sersi is a member of the Eternals, an evolutionary offshoot of humanity gifted with amazing powers and abilities to look after the human race throughout the ages. Which is similar to, but also just a smidgen bit different from the Eternals movie counterparts. As an Eternal, Sersi's body is augmented by cosmic energy, and she has total mental control over her entire molecular structure, which allows her and other Eternals to be immortal, indestructible, and invulnerable to anything which isn't stronger than the cosmic energy that augmented them in the first place. Sersi has enough strength to bench 20 tons, but thanks to her telekinesis, she can augment that to lift about 25. Her telekinesis also allows Sersi to fly at about 760 miles per hour. She can project cosmic energy in heat, light, or concussive blasts. She has telepathy that allows her to hypnotize weak-minded fools. She can teleport, but hates it, and she is even able to project images from her mind, which is a super cool ability. Those are all the powers we don't see in the Eternals movie though, because arguably the ability that she has the most talent in is her matter transmutation ability, which allows Sersi to transmute nearly any item or being into almost whatever she wishes. Number 2. Darkhawk. The coolest name for the strangest mashup of ideas. Christopher Powell was the son of a cop and a district attorney. When he witnessed his father taking a bribe from a mob boss, he stumbled upon an amulet that gave him the ability to transfer his consciousness to the Darkhawk armor. Now this ancient Shi'ar magical armor is very cool, and it gave its user quite the set of abilities. Obviously the classic superhuman strength, speed, durability, agility, and reflexes are all here in excess, but the armor allowed for armament conjuration from the extra-dimensional expanse, and could manifest mutations from Chris's body at will. The armor had glider wings that allowed him to fly on air currents, but he gained an upgrade that brought his flight to interstellar distances and speeds. Chris is able to heal from even the worst of wounds by just switching back to his human body. The armor can generate force fields, generate dark energy blasts, give its user enhanced vision, and can switch to a bunch of different modes, going transparent, doubling up its armor, and fighting with even stronger weapons. weapons. The problem for Darkhawk is that he has this very Iron Man vibe that kind of mixes with a Wolverine vibe due to his fist claws. It also mixes with a bit of a Spider-Man vibe as well, and it all just didn't really allow him to stay relevant past the 90s. And in at number 1 is Hawkeye. Okay, look. Hear me out. Yes, Clint Barton is essentially just a regular human man, but despite that, and likely because of his abilities and talents, he is considered a power level 4 according to Nick Fury's intel. Those aforementioned abilities include being a master of archery in the use of regular bows, longbows, compound bows, and crossbows, with basically perfect accuracy, able to fire multiple arrows at a single target in a few seconds. But he now also has near perfect precision with any aimed or thrown weapon. He is at the peak level of human eyesight possible. I don't know how you train that, but there you go. He is in peak athletic human condition with peak strength, endurance, and reflexes. He is an expert acrobat, tactician, and master martial artist, but listing off his abilities isn't really going to give you a proper understanding. So what has he done? In Avengers Volume 3, number 14, Hawkeye was cornered by 17 marksmen and took them all down without taking a single life. In Hawkeye Volume 4, number 1, Clint ran into a wanted criminal in a bar and took him down silently, fracturing his neck with a deck of cards.
Number 10, North Star and Aurora. Look at me, cheating right out the gate. North Star and Aurora are mutant twins who have the same powers, which is why they are listed together. Jean-Marie and Jean-Paul Barbier were separated early in life when their parents died in a car accident. Jean-Paul ended up in foster homes before eventually becoming an Olympic skier, while Jean-Marie ended up at a strict Catholic girls' boarding school, which was so traumatic that she ended up developing dissociative identity disorder, creating an alternate personality known as Aurora. Each twin possesses super speed as well as the ability to fly. Because some readers are likely more familiar with North Star due to his time on the X-Men, away from his sister, they may be surprised to learn that when the twins link hands, they produce an intensely bright light that can be used to blind their enemies, making them even more powerful as a pair. Number 9, Sasquatch. Walter Lankowski was a brilliant and athletic student at Penn State on a football scholarship when he struck up a friendship with a fellow student named Bruce Banner. The two went their separate ways, but Banner inspired a fascination with gamma radiation in Walter. Walter became a player for the Green Bay Packers before retiring to finish his graduate studies at MIT. Fascinated by the Hulk, Walter decided to conduct a similar, though more controlled, gamma experiment on himself. This transformed him into the incredibly strong creature known as Sasquatch. Although at first glance he seems to simply be a knockoff of Hulk, due to the help of his teammate Snowbird, Walter is able to keep the beast at bay and retain his genius intellect, when in his Sasquatch form, something the Hulk is only occasionally capable of in the comics. This makes him more than a blunt instrument, often helping the team just as much as a genius scientist. Number 8, Thunder. This one's a bit of a journey, so stick with me. In World War II, Lewis Sadler became Major Maple Leaf, who was the Canadian equivalent to Captain America. He had limited invulnerability as well as super strength, which made him a true force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. Many years later, his son, Lewis Sadler Jr., would take on the Major Maple Leaf mantle. When the original Alpha Flight team was kidnapped by a group of aliens, Sasquatch recruited the new Major Maple Leaf to join a new version of the team in an effort to mount a rescue mission. It was assumed that he had the same powers as his father, as well as power blasts and the ability to fly, but it turned out that the new Major didn't actually have any powers. Not that he would ever admit it. No, it turned out that the one with powers was actually his magical horse, Thunder. Thunder the Super Equine has all the aforementioned powers as well as extremely high intelligence for a horse. So like the equivalent intelligence of a normal person. He can also communicate basic messages to the Major through meaningful gazes. Thunder is pretty chill about Major Maple Leaf stealing his, well, thunder, and remained Sadler's faithful steed for the duration of the character's run. Number 7, Snowbird. In an effort to save the Earth from the mystical great beasts, the Inuit goddess of the northern lights, Nelvana, mated with a human in order to create a daughter, Naria, who came to the Earth to protect Canada from the evil great beasts. She took on the secret identity of a RCMP officer named Anne Mackenzie and soon joined the original Alpha Flight team as Snowbird. Snowbird's most well-known ability is to transform herself into any animal found in northern Canada, taking on its mass and strength, as well as any of the animal's other abilities. Some of her transformations include polar bears, owls, and whales. She can also turn into mystical Canadian creatures, giving her the power to become the dangerous and incredibly powerful Wendigo. Beyond these more well-known powers, she also possesses super strength in her human form, as well as post-cognition, which is the ability to see events that have transpired in the past at a given location. In Snowbird's case, she can see up to 6 hours in the past. Although this weakness no longer applies, Snowbird used to grow weak and sick if she was taken outside of Canada's borders. Number 6. Talisman. Elizabeth Two Young Men is the estranged daughter of Shaman, who reluctantly joined Alpha Flight and began working with her father. She eventually reached into the shaman's mystical pouch and found the Coronet of Enchantment, transforming Elizabeth into Talisman. Although she cannot remove the tiara without suffering excruciating pain, it grants her the ability to cast several impressive spells. Some of these spells give her the abilities of levitation, teleportation, and matter manipulation, just to name a few. Although her father can ask spirits to act on his behalf, the Coronet also gives Talisman the power to make spirits do what she wants. Number 5. Madison Jeffries. Another mutant member of Alpha Flight, Madison Jeffries served in the Vietnam War as a mechanic before returning home to Canada. He has the ability to alter and restructure inorganic materials with his mind. He uses this to create weapons and machines that help him in battle. When he returned home, he began suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which caused him to lose control of his powers and take over a small town. Wolverine was sent in to deal with the situation and helped Jeffries before he was recruited into the Alpha Flight training program, Gamma Flight. He eventually joined the main team, even having a relationship with Vindicator while her husband Guardian was presumed dead. Jeffries' powers extend beyond simply being able to control machines. He can actually phase his body and consciousness into machines, which he used on several occasions to merge with the Box mech suit to heighten his strength in combat. Number 4. Guardian. The leader of Alpha Flight, James McDonald Hudson, was a scientist working for the Amcam Oil Company to develop an exosuit to make oil exploration more efficient. When he discovered that Amcam was planning to sell the suit to the Americans to use as a weapon, he destroyed the prototype and went to work for the Canadian government, developing his supersuit and going through various different hero names before settling on Guardian. His power suit acts as a powerful armor while providing him with force field protection. The armor also gives him the ability to fly and shoot concussive electromagnetic beams. Although he does not have super strength, he can use a graviton beam to lift heavy objects. He can also be propelled westward at the same speed as the rotation of the Earth, making him appear to teleport. When he was presumed dead, his wife Heather wore a similar suit, taking on the name Vindicator, leading the team in his absence. It was later revealed that Guardian had been rescued by the alien race, the Quarillan, who saved his life. They mistakenly thought the suit was part of him and turned him into a cyborg, making all of the suit's powers a part of him. Number 3. Puck. In his original appearances, Eugene Judd was simply a little person who had incredible acrobatic abilities and fighting skills. When John Byrne left the series, it was revealed that he had actually once been an extremely large man who was attacked by an evil sorcerer. This resulted in him being given a lengthened lifespan, but losing his height as a result. Puck's compression grants him super strength, being able to lift 10 tons and move at superhuman speed. One of the most beloved members of Alpha Flight, Puck is considered the heart of the team. He was killed by the Collective. Puck was sent to Hell, where he fought his way all to the top, becoming the ruler of Hell for a time, before returning to life to help save the lives of his friends. Number 2. Marina. Marina was found as an egg by the Smallwood family in Newfoundland, who raised the young alien as their own before she was recruited to train with Gamma Flight, eventually graduating to Alpha Flight in their first issue. She soon left the team to pursue a relationship with Namor the Submariner, who she eventually married. As an amphibian, Marina is able to thrive both above and below the water, being able to swim at a top speed of 51 knots. At times, her alien instincts would make her become bloodthirsty and violent, causing her hands to transform into deadly talons. Although not one of the most powerful members of the team, she eventually transformed into a leviathan, a giant sea snake that could shoot beams from her eyes. Number 1. Shaman. Dr. Michael Two Young Men was Canada's most brilliant surgeon before losing his wife in surgery caused him to recommit his life to learning the mystic ways of his people. He eventually became Shaman, one of the original members of Alpha Flight. The source of his powers is a mystical pouch which contains anything he needs at any given time to perform his spells. He has been shown to be able to control plants as well as fire and the weather. He can also convene with spirits and animals, as well as project his astral form in a similar way as Doctor Strange. Shaman is incredibly smart, which makes him use these powers in really clever ways, making them even more effective. For example, when Guardian was almost murdered in X-Men Unlimited number 45, Shaman had the spirits of the air keep feeding air to the Guardian's brain so that they could preserve his brain functions until they could get him proper medical attention.
At number 10, we have Ancient Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider on a freaking mammoth? Are you kidding me? Back when Earth was an untamed land inhabited by tribes of cavemen, the young boy who would become the first Ghost Rider was brilliant among his pack, but he kept this to himself, fearing isolation. One day, a strange man confronts the tribe, swiftly becoming the leader of their pack through violent means, and eventually revealing himself to be a Wendigo before devouring the entire tribe, save for the young boy. Before the Wendigo leaves, he names the boy Ghost and challenges the boy to find him. With everyone he'd ever known gone, Ghost ventures beyond his cave, deciding that if the stranger could survive out there in the world, so could he. Ghost then embarks on a quest to survive and find his newfound adversary. Alone in a new turbulent environment, Ghost nearly succumbs to exhaustion, but at that moment he's approached by a talking serpent who bestows upon Ghost the spirit of vengeance as a means of achieving his goal, transforming him into the very first Ghost Rider. Fast forward 5 years and the stage is set for a showdown. Ghost on the back of a flaming mammoth confronts the Wendigo, engaging in a battle that ends with the Wendigo pushing Ghost atop the mammoth off a cliff, a fall that only the rider would survive. Alone once more, the Ghost was approached by Odin and Lady Phoenix, who would ask him to join the prehistoric Avengers. By the way, if Ghost Rider on a mammoth isn't cool enough for you, then try the Ghost Rider of the Hyborian Age about 990,000 years later, when the Ghost Rider of that era rode a giant spider. The Spider Rider would go on to confront Conan the Barbarian, and while we don't know how that showdown ends, you can definitely bet it would be a battle of the ages. Well, the Hyborian Age specifically. And speaking of which...
Number 9. Conan the Barbarian. Conan was born on a carnage-strewn battlefield in the hills of the westernmost region of Chimeria, all the way back in the Hyborian Age, aka around 13 to 10,000 BC. The fact that Conan was born on a battlefield was considered to be an omen that Conan would grow up to be a great warrior one day. And Conan was one of the most accomplished swordsmen of the Hyborian Age. He has unusually high strength, agility, and speed for a human. He has lifted immense objects or enemies, even using his bare hands to bring down a raging bull when he was still relatively young. It's said that he has the strength equivalent of 10 to 20 men. More often than not though, Conan relies upon his lightning-fast reflexes in combat situations, and they've very rarely failed him. On top of that, he has a massive level of durability, and through years of dealing with sorcerers, magicians, and witches, he has even developed a moderate level of resistance to magic and mind control spells. Conan is a master warrior. He has a hardy survival instinct, is a master of stealth, and is multilingual. While primarily known as a wandering sellsword, Conan progressively became a master tactician, leading entire armies into battle, and eventually, Conan even became king of Aquilonia, wherever that is, and also eventually a hero interacting with the heroes of the modern day.
If you're enjoying the videos so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. Moving on to number 8, we have Odin Borson. Wait, did any of you guys know that the Allfather's last name is Borson? Just me? Okay. Odin, born from the union of Bor, the son of Buri, and Besla, a giantess, emerged alongside his brothers Kul, Vili, and Vis. I definitely butchered that, I'm so sorry. Together, these divine siblings embarked on a cosmic odyssey that would reshape reality itself. They dared to challenge Ymir, the frost giant, forging the very fabric of the cosmos and existence itself from Ymir's remains. Asgard, the celestial realm, blossomed from the remnants of Ymir, becoming the abode of gods in the heart of their dominion. Yet Odin's exploits were not limited to creation alone. One day, a sentient and all-powerful storm known as the God Tempest threatened the sanctity of Asgard. Odin, as mighty as the storm was, stood resolute against its fury, and with a display of power that echoed through the cosmos, Odin quelled the tempest, imprisoning its essence within in a fragment of Uru, which would one day become the legendary Mjolnir, a symbol of power and worthiness. Sometime after forging Mjolnir, but long before the birth of Thor, Odin descended upon Midgard, then known as Aesheim, where he bestowed upon the world the gift of humanity. However, even the god's benevolence can be tempered with enigmatic purpose. Bor, his father, was not entirely pleased with Odin's creation, casting upon humanity the mantle of suffering. As eons swept by, Odin's saga intertwined with the Stone Age. See, Mjolnir proved difficult to wield, leading Odin to forge an alliance with mystically empowered prehistoric humans. Together they united as the Stone Age Avengers, the guardians of Earth's fragile yet flourishing existence.
Number 7. The Immortal. Due to an accident that happened approximately 3,000 years ago, the man who became Invincible's Immortal was exposed to an unknown anomaly that gave him superhuman abilities that put him almost on par with Viltrumites, making him one of 3 known beings in the universe that can make that claim. But outside of his incredible strength, speed, durability, stamina, and flight powers, the Immortal is, you guessed it, immortal, able to regenerate at an insanely fast rate, regrowing limbs and organs, not needing food, water, or oxygen to survive, and being immune to all poisons, toxins, venoms, viruses, bacteria, parasites, pathogens, and allergens. However, funnily enough, there is a way to, quote, kill him. If the Immortal's head is separated from his torso, it needs to be manually reattached for his healing factor to activate. But despite that, even when they aren't attached, he still remains perfectly preserved until the reattachment happens. He's been around for so long that he has been a knight, possibly under King Arthur as Lancelot, an explorer under or possibly as Christopher Columbus in the Spanish Armada. He fought in the American Revolution, became president of the United States by taking the alias of this guy you may know called Abraham Lincoln, and he fought as a soldier in the First World War. In the 1930s is when he officially became a superhero and more recently became a member of the Guardians of the Globe.
At number 6 is Phoenix. We begin with an abandoned infant named Firehair left to her own devices at a place aptly named the Burnt Place. It wasn't a cozy nursery, mind you, but a clearing where xenophobic tribes tried to sacrifice anyone who manifested appearances which strayed from their norm, in this case the child's red hair. The abandoned infant found herself being raised by an unlikely family, a pack of wolves. Wolves, the original guardians of the forest. Perhaps a canine paw father is what every superhero needs. One fateful day, Firehair's solitude was interrupted by a floating man who conversed through thoughts. No need for that pesky small talk. This floating mentor, which Firehair fondly dubbed as the High Walker, introduced her to a congregation of adopted mutants called the Tribe Without Fear, offering refuge and training. Fast forward, and Firehair's psychic abilities awakened just in time to sound the alarm about an impending attack from the xenophobes from earlier. As the High Walker faced off against the invading tribesmen, Firehair's psyche is overwhelmed by the storm of human emotion. Sadly, the High Walker meets his end while trying to calm her. Firehair fainted as her fellow pupils gave into rage and fought the attacking tribesmen, resulting in the demise of everyone present save for herself. Firehair blamed herself for her mentor and friend's demise and was overcome with despair, contemplating turning her powers on herself to unalive herself, returning to the Burnt Place to be eaten by buzzards. As she lay awaiting her demise, the Phoenix Force, an ancient cosmic entity with a penchant for turning planets into cinder, who had created the Burnt Place when it first arrived on Earth, bonds with Firehair, having been drawn to her raw and untapped psychic power. Consumed by a vengeful rage, Firehair almost gave in to the bloodlust and became a dark phoenix, but she was pacified thanks to the one who had saved her as an infant, her paw father, if you will. From that day forward, she would take a page out of the wolf playbook and decide to protect the weak rather than lay waste to the universe. Realizing the threat that beings such as herself posed to the integrity of Earth, she began assembling a team of supernatural and mystically augmented heroes to protect the nation's humanity from both outside threats and themselves, and thus founding the Avengers of the Stone Age.
Number 5. Exodus. Grand Duke Benny du Perry was a 12th century nobleman from medieval France in Marvel Comics. Does that count as ancient? I don't know anyone who's around then, so I'm taking it and running with it. What are you gonna do about it? Nothing, because I'm just an image on your screen. As an adult, Benny was a crusader for the Knights Templar sent to Jerusalem during the Crusades, and he even became best friends with Eobard Garrington, aka the Black Knight of that era. The two had set out on a quest to find the Tower of Power, which is a stupid name, when his abilities manifested after an encounter with the Phoenix Force, which were then improved further thanks to the mutant apocalypse. But thanks to Big Blue, Exodus was trapped in a tomb until the modern day, when he was awoken by Magneto and joined his cause. Exodus is one of the most powerful psionic mutants in existence, with such a pristine use of telekinesis and telepathy that he can even alter electrons and molecules. His power is so strong that Marvel even even had to debuff him by making his powers dependent on his or others' level of faith in this mutant, although he still regularly kicks some serious butt.
At number 4 is Agamotto. Now, speaking of ancient superheroes, let's uncover a figure whose power and influence might just leave you spellbound. No, he's not your everyday magician pulling rabbits out of hats. We're talking about the cosmic conjurer who would give Doctor Strange a run for his money. Imagine being tutored by a deity, Oshurdur no less, the literal elder goddess of Earth. But Agamotto wasn't just a student, he went on to become Earth's very first Sorcerer Supreme. Agamotto would go on to face cosmic threats like the Fallen, and yes, even Dormammu, which he thwarted alongside the Stone Age Avengers. Now let's talk artifact. The legend of Agamotto was like an Indiana Jones fever dream, as he'd created magical treasures that would make a dragon's hoard look like pocket change. First off, we got the eyes, that's right, eyes plural, of Agamotto. You might remember one of those as the pendant in Doctor Strange's possession that guards the Time Stone. Well, Agamotto made not one, not two, but 3 of them bad boys. But their intended purpose wasn't meant to guard Infinity Stones or serve as reading glasses. These peepers could pierce through dimensions, unlocking knowledge that could make Google's search engine blush. Ever heard of the Book of Vishanti? Yup, that was Agamotto's brainchild too, an enchanted book that's like Wikipedia but for spells. Agamotto went from being a mere mortal sorcerer supreme to being a bona fide higher being, a principality. Essentially, imagine a being so magically advanced that you become a go-to power source for other sorcerers, sort of like being the neighborhood electrician for the mystical realm. So there you have it, Agamotto, the ancient superhero who wasn't just reading spells from a dusty book, he was writing them into that dusty book, shaping the very fabric of reality, defending Earth from cosmic threats, and leaving behind a trail of magical breadcrumbs for future sorcerers to follow.
Number 3, Starbrand Vin. The Starbrand itself is an incredible source of power, proven by other people who have wielded it. The bearer of Earth 723's Starbrand used the power to create music that influenced human behavior to the extent that he has unified the people of his world as a single hive mind. Earth 541 is the home of a Starbrand bearer who has conquered his world and installed himself as the head of a benevolent monarchical dictatorship, but like a good one that actually somehow works despite the lack of freedoms. Thing is, what the Starbrand is capable of is dependent on its wielder's imagination. When it first showed up on Earth, it was millions and millions of years ago, coming down with a meteor that wiped out the dinosaurs, but in doing so, it bonded itself to a Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is absolutely awesome. After a few millions of years though, that T-Rex had gone belly up, and the Starbrand found a new bearer in the form of a caveman named Vin. It's just VNN, I don't know why it's pronounced like that. Interestingly though, when Vin came upon the Starbrand and used it to join up with the Avengers 1 million BC, he was actually more analogous to like the Hulk, at least in his looks, and he had a more primitive use of the Starbrand than other future bearers. But he did live on the moon for a bit and help fight a Celestial, so don't get it twisted, he did more than just punch stuff.
At number 2 is the first Black Panther. Meet Mosi, a member of the Black Panther tribe in the legendary land of Wakanda. Now, he wasn't the first of his tribe to munch on the heart-shaped herb, but he was the first to survive the experience as he caught the attention of a powerful entity known as Bast, the Panther Spirit. And let me tell you folks, that wasn't your ordinary herbal experience. We're in ancient Wakanda after all, not modern Canada. With Bast's blessing, Mosi became the very first Black Panther. Talk about leveling up. It was around this time that Earth was dealing with some cosmic turbulence courtesy of a meteor from the Vega system. The rifts it opened up started inviting all sorts of extraterrestrial nasties like the Brood to the neighborhood. Not one to let his tribe become an all-you-can-eat buffet for these cosmic creeps, Mosi stepped in as Wakanda's defender-in-chief. And guess who else decided to crash the party? None other than Odin Borison, the Asgardian bigwig himself. Now, Odin wasn't exactly known for tossing around compliments like confetti, but he had to admit he was pretty darn impressed with Mosi's moral moxie. And if that wasn't enough, get this, Mosi was the first person after Odin to ever lift Mjolnir, proving his worthiness during the first encounter with the rest of the Stone Age Avengers. Mosi and his crew sealed away a colossal celestial, saving the day like it was just another Wednesday. They faced off against cosmic villains like Mephisto and Shumagora, making your average supervillain seem about as threatening as a fluffy kitten. But alas, all good things must come to an end. Mosi met his match in a battle against the children of Laufey and Hive, and his sacrifice marked the end of this ancient Avengers era. The team disbanded with Mosi's demise, and also caused the Wakandan people to retreat from the outside world, requesting that the Avengers forget their existence. The nation would then segment into tribes and were not reunited again until the rise of the second Black Panther, Alumo Bashenga.
And finally, in at number 1 today is Mr. Majestic. DC Comics' Mr. Majestic, also known as Magistros, is a character of immense power and capability that often surprises readers with the extent extent of his abilities. Hailing from an advanced alien race known as the Cherubim, Majestic possesses superhuman strength, speed, and durability that rivals even the mightiest of superheroes. Unlike the lesser cast, however, he is a Cherubim of Imperial blood, meaning he has a host of cosmic tier physical and mental abilities. Majestic has demonstrated the power to manipulate matter and energy at a molecular level, able to discharge any manner of energy he has on hand however he sees fit, rearranging the subatomic structure of objects, or charging his fists with energy to increase his punching strength. Speaking of strength though, he has rearranged most of the planets in the solar system by just pushing them from his own power, and has crushed graphite into diamonds in order to pay for a meal, which those two things are very, very different. On top of all of that though, Majestic is basically Wildstorm's analog for Superman and shares a lot of the same abilities as the Man of Steel, and when interacting with the rest of the DC multiverse, he's considered to be an alternate Earth Superman. Oh, and he makes this list because, being a Cherubim, he is about 10,000 years old.